Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all here today. And we're uh, we're going to start on a new series today. And the title of the series is The Teachings of Jesus in the Gospel of John. And today the title is called The Beginnings, and it's John 1, 1 through 18. Now, in this Bible study series, we'll be studying the teachings of Jesus as found in the Gospel of John. We won't study all the verses in John, but we'll be picking out the teachings of Jesus which John recorded. However, our first lesson will be an introductory lesson to establish the foundations from the beginning. John's gospel is quite different from the other three, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, who wrote what we call the synoptic gospels. Synoptic means to see with or together. Although they have distinctive purposes, they view the life of Jesus in the same way. As Luke wrote, they attempted to write an orderly account so that people like Theophilus could know this with certainty, the certainty of what they had been taught, which is Luke 1, 3 through 4. It says, "It seemed fitting to me as well, having investigated everything carefully from the beginning, to write it out for you in an orderly sequence, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may know the exact truth about the things you have been taught." They emphasize facts and history, including many of Jesus' parables. John's writing seems much deeper, going not just back to Jesus' birth, but back to his beginning. Uh, he seems to be intent on establishing the fact that Jesus was much more than a carpenter. He was God. And as God, he must be believed and followed. John quoted many teachings of Jesus that are not recorded in the Synoptic Gospels. Of course, as John noted, many things that Jesus said and did were never recorded, and that's John 21:25. But there are also many other things which Jesus did, which, if they are written in detail, I expect that even the world itself could not contain the books that could be written. The writers of the Gospels had to be selective in what they included, of course. They were inspired by the Holy Spirit to write what they did. So we know that they didn't leave out anything that we actually need to know. John stated very clearly his purpose for writing his gospel. It was so that we readers might, quote, believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing we may have life in his name. John 20:30 through 31 says, "So then many other signs Jesus also performed in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book, but these have been written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name." So let's read our text for today, which is John 1, 1 through 18. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and apart from him, not even one thing came into being that has come into being. In him was life, and the life was the light of mankind. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not grasp it. A man came, one sent from God, and his name was John. He came as a witness to testify about the light, so that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but he came to testify about the light. And this was the true light that coming into the world enlightens every person. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him, and yet the world did not know him. He came to his own people did not accept him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of a man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we saw his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. John testified about him and called out, saying, "This was he of whom I said, he is coming after me. He who is coming after me has proved to be my superior, because he existed before me. For of his fullness we have all received, and grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth were realized through Jesus Christ. No one has seen God at any time. God, the only Son, who is in the arms of the Father, he has explained him." John begins in the beginning, just like Genesis, but his beginning seems to antedate uh, uh, Genesis beginning, unless we cut off the first sentence of Genesis 1:1 and read only "in the beginning God." But where did Jesus begin? With Mary? With David? With Abraham? With Adam? Can we find his beginnings in the genealogies? You know what? We can't find his beginning at all. He was just in the beginning. He is the Word, which in Greek is logos, and it means God speaking. Here we see so clearly two persons of the Trinity. If there were only one, John could not say the Word was with God. That would be like saying, "I am with myself," which doesn't make much sense, although that's how people talk these days. So we understand that John is speaking of two of the three persons of the Trinity. But then he says the Word was God. God is one. Jesus, the Word, is truly God and yet with God. He is God the Son, today sitting at the right hand of God the Father. In the beginning, he was with God, and it was the Father and the Word who conferred on the creation of man. And that's Genesis 1:26. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every crawling thing that crawls on the earth." These two verses establish the eternal existence of God the Son, the position of the Son in the Trinity, and the eternal fellowship and unity of the Father and the Son. By the way, the Bible indicates that all three persons of the Trinity, as God, created the universe. How vitally important is the Son? Well, reading on, we find that he's a creator. He is life and he is light. Colossians 1:16, "For by him all things were created, both in the heavens and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him." Paul enumerates what was created by him: things in earth, things in heaven, and things in earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. Even the invisible things or powers that we are unaware of were created by him. And Paul goes on to say that they were not only created by him, but for him. In other words, they belong to him. Even the devil who tempted him was created by him and belongs to him. There's nothing else. All are within the circle of his creation and his ownership. Paul also, like John, established Jesus' eternal existence and present sustaining power in Colossians 1:17. He said, "He is before all things, and in him all things hold together." I really like that verse a lot. Not only did he create everything, he holds it together. He has no antecedent, and he holds everything together, including, the demon, Satan, and all unbelievers who even reject him and oppose him. That's the power and the glory of the man who was born in the stable, was flogged by Romans, was spit on by the high priest's servants, and was nailed to the cross. You know what? It's almost incomprehensible. Somehow, John was given deeper insight than the others and was able to comprehend it. John wrote next, in him was life. He was life, and that's why he's able to create. Life flowed out of him in the creation. No one but he has been able to create life out of nothing. That's called ex nihilo. No, it is his life that still sustains our life. And yet the one who is life died. How can life die? I guess that's what happens when sin enters. Sin kills life. Sin and the curse gradually kill our bodies. We're in the process of dying. The spiritual life dies when sin is allowed free reign. So there's no life in Satan or demons, only death. They're the living dead, along with the people who are outside of God's grace. Romans 6 through 8. For the mind set on the flesh is death, but the mind set on the spirit is life and peace. Because the mind set on the flesh is hostile toward God. For it does not subject itself to the law of God, for it is not even able to do so. And those who are in the flesh cannot please God. A very important statement. John describes the Son further by equating life with light. The only life there is in the only light there is in the life of the Son. Life equals light. That's why when a person comes to Christ, light floods in on him. He who's been full of death and darkness is now full of light and life. The problem is that most people don't get that. Have you experienced the flood of life and light, or is your Christianity only head knowledge? The light is even now shining in the darkness. The Greek New Testament translates it, the darkness was unable to overtake or conquer the light. The Amplified Bible says the darkness has never overpowered it, put it out, or has not absorbed it, has not appropriated it, and is unreceptive to it. Darkness cannot put out light or absorb light. Darkness doesn't put light to use. It's unable to accept or comprehend it. On the other hand, light overpowers darkness. It puts darkness out. It absorbs or eats up darkness as it spreads. This is why it's so important to remember that Jesus is the light of the world. And he said we are the light of the world if we believe in him. Matthew 5:14 through 16. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but they put it on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Your light must shine before people in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. The story of Jesus' ministry begins with John the Baptist. Jesus was not the only one who was sent from God. John was too. It's a privilege to be sent from God to serve him. At his first appearance to the disciples after his resurrection, Jesus said, as the Father has sent me, I am sending you. John 20:21. So Jesus said to them again, peace be to you, just as the Father has sent me, I also send you. John's name gives us the reason God sent him to the world. John means the Lord is gracious. The patient Lord is gracious to his lost and dying people. He's not willing that any should perish. Boy, that's something to remember. How full of grace are we to others? and especially those who are lost and dying in our time. What was John the Baptist's ministry? Well, he came as a witness. A witness to what? Like a witness at a trial, he was to establish the authenticity of the main character. A lawyer will question the witness about the person on trial. Is he who he says he is? And is his character what he says it is? John was to point to and speak up for the light. He was someone in a dark tunnel pointing to the light or of a torch up ahead that pushes away the darkness and shows the way out. The reason his job was so important was that all those in darkness, all of us, need the light. It's through him, the light, that all men have a chance to believe. He's our only hope. John the Baptist was showing the way out of the darkness by pointing to the only light. You know, there are not many ways and many lights, as some say. There's only one. John the Baptist was not himself the light, but only a witness to the light, just as we are not the light, but only a witness to and reflection of the great light, Jesus Christ. To whom was John witnessing? To the one who is coming into the world. Who was he? The true light that gives light to every man. He's the creator, the light, the life, the one who sustains all life. The Christmas story is the most amazing thing this universe has ever seen. The creator himself, who sustains all life he created, came into his world. That's shocking. And John's next sentence is almost as shocking. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, it did not recognize him. How dull can we people be? This was why John the Baptist was needed. He was saying, look, here he is. The one who's coming was prophesied, the hope of the ages. Don't you recognize him? The owner came to his world, his land, his people. His own didn't receive him for the most part. In fact, they rejected, despised, and crucified him. The owner. Now, you'll remember Jesus' parable of the tenants in Luke 29 through 19 says this. But he began to tell the people this parable. A man planted a vineyard and leased it to vine growers and went on a journey for a long time. At the harvest time, he sent a slave to the vine growers so that they would give him his share of the produce of the vineyard. But the vine growers beat him and sent him away empty-handed. And he proceeded to send another slave, but they beat him also and treated him shamefully and sent him away empty-handed. And he proceeded to send a third, but this one too they wounded and threw out. Now the owner of the vineyard said, what am I to do? I will send my beloved son. Perhaps they will respect him. But when the vine growers saw him, they discussed with one another, saying, this is the heir. Let's kill him so the inheritance will be ours. So they threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. What then will the owner of the vineyard do to them? He will come and put these vine growers to death and will give the vineyard to others. However, when they heard this, they said, may it never happen. But Jesus looked at them and said, then this is the statement that has been written. A stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. Everyone who falls on that stone will be broken to pieces, but on whomever it falls, it will crush him. The scribes and chief priests tried to lay hands on him that very hour, and yet they feared the people, for they were aware he had spoken this parable against them. At least they were aware of that much. But they didn't recognize who the owner of the vineyard was. When the owner of the vineyard sent his son to his vineyard, the wicked tenants threw him out and killed him. In that parable, Jesus prophesied what would happen to him. The good news is that there were and are some who received him. It's true that they were and are only a remnant, a small minority, but they were and are especially blessed because instead of rejected him, they received him. They all belong to him by creation, but only the few actually became his beloved children. How? Well, this is an important verse because it shows us two major truths. First of all men are not children of God. You ever heard somebody say, I'm a child of God? Are you born again? We have to become children of God. We have no rights. He chose to give us the right of sonship. Second, this verse tells us that believing in his name, what believing in his name really means. It means receiving him instead of rejecting him. This is all of grace through faith. These became children not from natural descent. Some people think they're Christians because of their father or mother is a Christian or whatever they've gone to church all their life or whatever. These children are not born of human means. They are born of God. And therefore, they become children of God. God gives birth, new creatures in Christ, to those who open the door of their hearts by faith to receive the rejected owner as their own personal owner. John continues explaining about the Word, the self-existent eternal one who became flesh. Whew, wonder of wonders. He came down to make his dwelling among us, his creatures. John could say as eyewitness who was at the Mount of Transfiguration, we've seen his glory. John, Peter, and James saw Jesus in his glory as God. That wasn't just any glory, it was the glory of the one and only. It is not true, as some claim, that we are sons of God in the same way that Jesus is. We're adopted into the family like abandoned and abused children who've been mistreated by their parents, ours being the enemy. We who have no rights are brought into God's family and given the right to be called sons of God, all on the basis of faith and grace. But there's only one and only. Jesus is unique as the only begotten Son of the Father. He came from the Father, was sent by the Father, and is exactly like the Father, full of grace and truth. There's no ungrace or untruth in him as he is in us. John testifies about the Son, saying that the one who comes after him has surpassed him because he was born before him. He was before him. How could one person be the same at the same time, surpassing and before? God had revealed to John that he was to precede the one who would come after him to announce his coming and prepare the way for him. The one coming was the focal point, not John. He, the Son, was far ahead in every way, though he followed in time. How can one person say of another, he will come after, but he was before? John knew about the incarnation. This cousin of his, born 6 months after him, was the pre-existent one, the one and only Son who came down from the Father. Verses 14 through 17 emphasize grace and truth. The one and only was full of grace and truth. How has his grace benefited us? He's so full of grace, and the blessings of it run over the edge into our lives, and hopefully into the lives of others. Grace is like that. It blesses everyone around it. Our problem is that we have so little grace that there's only a trickle of grace to run over to others. Not so with Jesus. We just keep receiving one blessing right after another. John summarizes the whole plan of God in one verse, verse 17. God used Moses to give us the law. We needed it because we're like children who don't know the rules. First, we have to know what's right and wrong. God gave us something to measure by, the law. It helps us know that what God expects and how far we have fallen from that goal. Then came Christ. Recognizing our failures, we can then see how much we need a Savior. His coming brought us the only grace and truth there is, and our only hope. This is why it's so important to preach the full gospel. People need to understand that they're sinners before they can accept God's grace for them. So, in conclusion, how do we get to know the invisible God? No one has ever or can ever see God the Father. And yet, seeing Jesus is seeing God. Knowing Jesus makes it possible for us to know the Father. He who is God, the one and only, reveals the Father to us. We can read about the Father in the Old Testament, but in Jesus, we see the pictures, hear the words, and observe the actions of the Father. He is the image of the invisible God. Colossians 1:15 and 19. 15 says he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. 19 says, for it was the Father's good pleasure for all the fullness to dwell in him. This is why it's so important to pay close attention to the parables and teachings of Jesus. In them we come to know the Father as Jesus reveals him to us. So in this Bible studies, let's listen to Jesus' teachings with our heart to learn all we can about our invisible God.